Back then, I used to think that every relationship broke down because of a fight, a hurtful argument, a betrayal, or a breach of trust. But as I grew older, I began to realize that what truly drives people apart isn't the shouting or the blaming. It's the silence. Not the kind of silence that soothes, but the kind that builds walls. The kind that stretches on for days, then weeks, until it becomes normal. The kind of silence that turns once familiar people into strangers. When do people stop wanting to understand each other, stop trying to explain, stop even wanting to ask what's wrong? That's when a relationship starts to die. Not with an explosion, but with a quiet fading. I once had a best friend. We were inseparable. We knew each other's habits, moods, even the way our eyes shifted when we were upset. A glance was enough to know what the other was thinking. We had shared exams, heartbreaks, late-night talks, and dreams of a future where we would never lose touch. But slowly, without warning, things changed. We didn't fight. There was no betrayal. Just silence. Texts became less frequent. Conversations shrank to one-word replies. I asked if something was wrong. No, they said. I asked again, still nothing. And eventually, I stopped asking. We drifted apart, quietly, almost gracefully, as if our bond dissolved on its own. There was no goodbye. No final argument, just an unspoken understanding that we no longer fit in each other's lives. And to this day, I don't know what happened, only that silence ended what words could have saved. Silence, that seemingly harmless thing, turns out to be more destructive than any fight. In love, too, people don't leave after a loud argument. They leave after countless days of not talking. They leave when "I love you" becomes a routine, when eye contact disappears in crowds. When do people sit side by side, but their minds wander in opposite directions? It's when someone says "I'm fine," but their eyes are red, and the other person hears it and says nothing. It's when one person is clearly hurting, and the other doesn't ask, or only asks out of politeness, not concern. I was once someone who waited for an explanation, even just the sentence "I don't love you anymore." But what I got was complete silence. No confrontation, no closure, just being ignored, and that hurt more than any rejection. Because words, even cruel ones, at least acknowledge your existence. But silence tells you, you're no longer a part of my world. I've seen it in my own parents. They've lived together for over 30 years. They don't argue. They don't yell. But they also don't really talk. My mother cooks. My father eats. She asks questions. He gives short answers. Some days, I came home to the sounds of clinking dishes, the television in the background, but no conversation. My mother would wash the dishes. My father would scroll on his phone. I once asked her, "Are you happy?" She smiled and said, "What is there to be happy or sad about?" I asked my father if he loved her. He stayed silent. Their marriage didn't break apart, but it wasn't alive either. It just existed, like a cactus surviving in the desert, needing only the bare minimum. But I understood something then. When a child grows up in a home without laughter, without hugs, without meaningful conversations, that child grows up believing that love is supposed to be quiet, distant, and endured. And that's exactly how I grew up. I used to think silence was a way to avoid hurting each other, but it's not. Silence is a way to avoid responsibility, a way to exit a relationship without owning the damage, a way to say goodbye without having to speak the word. Silence becomes the most convenient weapon, clean, invisible, and easy to deny. I didn't do anything, we say. But sometimes, not doing anything is the worst thing of all. Silence isn't only in personal relationships, it exists in society too. At work, someone is bullied or treated unfairly. Everyone sees it, but no one speaks up. It's not my business, we think. If I speak up, I'll be next. We are taught to stay silent to stay safe. But no one tells us that this silence is also a form of violence. I once saw a young coworker get mistreated by a superior for simply speaking the truth. Everyone noticed. Everyone whispered in private, but no one stepped forward, not even me. And then one day, it happened to me. I was alone. Everyone else stayed silent. That day, I understood how painful silence can be. Not because they hated me, but because they didn't care enough to speak. Sometimes, we stay silent because we think we're not important enough to be heard. Sometimes we stay silent because we're too tired to explain one more time. And sometimes, We stay silent because we've already stopped caring. Every time that happens, a relationship loses one more heartbeat. Slowly, it dies. People don't always leave after being yelled at, but they do leave after being ignored over and over again. If I could go back, I'd tell my old friend how much I missed our midnight talks. I'd tell my ex how long I waited for a goodbye. I'd tell my mother she didn't have to get used to silence, that she deserved to be loved, to be spoken to be seen. I'd tell myself, next time, don't stay silent. Speak even if your voice shakes. Speak even if the other person turns away. Because words may hurt once, but silence hurts forever. And you know what? If someone is still on your mind, say something. Call them, text them. Don't wait. Don't let silence become the final chapter. One day, you might want to speak, but they'll already be gone. And by then, no sound will matter.